Spirit Keeper, and I give you a reason for every season. And today, I just got my hands on the Spirit Halloween 2025 Fire Demon Animatronic. Spirit Halloweens are starting to open up very soon, and well, some of my locals did start to open, and I was lucky enough to get my hands on the Fire Demon Animatronic, and he is probably going to be my favorite animatronic for Spirit Halloween 2025, just because we don't really get demon animatronics in the retail market, and I think that this guy was such a well-executed animatronic, and I knew I had to get him. Fire Demon is being manufactured by Crazy Create and is being retailed for $309.99, so $310. But without any further ado, let's preview his box. Starting off with the very front of Fire Demon's box, we obviously have him in all of his glory, a close-up picture of his face right there, and he is outdoor rated, so I will test that out in the review part, so stay tuned for that. And then the Spirit logo, his name, and then the description of basically what he does. On this side of the box, we have Fire Demon in that landscape that all the other animatronics are in, a size chart right here with his height compared to a regular sized human, and then his name once again. And then on the back, we obviously just have his description. And then this side of the box has him actually covering his head right there, and then his head revealed down there. Once again, his name, and then we have the See in Action QR code right there. So we can now open this guy up, and he does have those flaps on the back, so you just want to take them out, and then open the top of his box right here, and you can see he has a slide out, so let's go ahead and take this out. So I just took this out of the Fire Demon box, and now right on the top, we have his clothing bag with the instructions, and the clothes are pretty heavy compared to other props, so hopefully they're nice quality. I'm now going to take out this arm right here, and it does have that foam, and I'm glad that this is black to sort of blend in with the clothes instead of that white. We can now take out his other arm, same thing as the other one, that black foam. Right here, we can now take out his rib cage, and this thing looks so awesome. You can see it actually almost looks like a gold and black mixed together. Overall, really nice. We can now take out one of his horns, and once again, it has that black and gold. Overall, really nice, and I like that it is pointy right here. Now I'm gonna go ahead and take out his spotlight, and this will have that flame effect with the light in. So, here it is. We can now take out his power adapter right in this box. I'm not sure why the box is black, because on all the other props from Spirit, they are usually white, but here's his adapter. We can now take out one of his hands, and just like everything else, this is going to be the last time I state this, that gold and then the black. Overall, really nice hand sculpt, and then right here it does have some Velcro for the clothing. We can now take out his other horn, and right here, once again, pointy, really nice detailing. We can now take out his other hand, and once again, really nice detailing on this. This is a hard plastic, and I do want to point out that the snap lock connection is actually plastic and not metal compared to everything else, so I thought that was pretty unique. We can now take out his head, which is definitely the main part about this guy. Right in here, I'll give all of you the first look at the Fire Demon head. So right here it is in all of its glory. Now let me take a look. It looks really awesome. However, the only thing is, obviously, he doesn't have his horns, so it doesn't really look like how it will. But once it's completed, this thing will look absolutely awesome. So I had to cut quite a few zip ties, but after that, we can now take out his shoulder piece. And this thing is just a nice metal material, nothing too crazy, just for his formation. Now we can take out his arm mechanism right here, and then you can see the mechanism right here. Nothing too crazy. He does also have a spring right here for his head to pop up. We can now take out his control box, and this is a really small control box, but just like every other Spirit prop I've seen this year, it has this plastic covering, which is really nice. And then right here, we just have his control box, nothing too crazy. And I do like that they include these little flaps right here to actually cover up the ports. We can now take out his 4 leg pulls, which you can't see on camera, but they're right there. So now, go ahead, take out these 2, and then take out the other 2. So here they are, all 4. And then we have these, which look to be like ground stakes, but I guess we'll find out. We can now take out another piece, which I'm guessing is either going to be for his head or his shoulders. We now have one of the main parts of Fire Demon, with that being his base. And right here, we do have his support beams, but Now that we have everything unboxed, I'm gonna go ahead, lay it all out, and give you an overview of his parts. Here is an overview of every part that Fire Demon includes, with the first one being his 4 leg pulls, with the first ones that you're gonna put on the base right there, as you can tell with those connections. You then have his shoulder frame piece, and then his rib cage, which once again looks really awesome, his adapter, and then that light, his 2 giant hands, his baggie with the clothes and then the instructions, his giant head. I'll give you a size comparison. That's my hand compared to it. So it's really big. His 2 arms, ground stakes because he is outdoor rated. We then have his control box, and then we have his mechanism piece, and then those 2 horns, and then this is going to be a waist formation piece, and then finally his base. For your first step of Fire Demon, you want to lay down the base and then take his leg pull. They're both labeled B, and then first simply just slide it down, snap lock it in, and then make sure it goes in. Mine isn't going in all the way, so I will have to fix that. And you want to take his support pull and then just wiggle it in to that support thing right there. Make sure it's all the way in. And then you want to repeat the same exact step with his other leg pull labeled B. Before attaching his other leg pulls, we can then take his 2 cotter pins that he comes with, and then compared to the other animatronics from Spirit this year, they don't have this, but with the support beams, he does actually have that whole connection with the cotter pins that you just want to simply slide them in. We can now take his 2 other leg pulls and then just do the exact same step. However, this time they won't have the supports, so you can just slide them over and then snap lock them in. We can now go ahead and attach Fire Demon's control box, and then just like everything else this far, slide it down and then just snap lock it in. We can now take Fire Demon's whole mechanism and then just snap lock it in, just like that. Probably one of the easiest snap locks so far. We can now take Fire Demon's hip loop, and then you just want to attach it back here, but make sure that these long parts are actually facing the back and not the front. We can then go ahead and take this white sheet of cloth, and then it does have some Velcros, and then you just want to Velcro these together around the hip loop that you just attached. So pretty easy steps. However, they do keep Velcroing back on each other, but once you do that, it should look just like this. We can now attach his light right here, which is a pretty simple step. However, it is kind of wobbly and it doesn't stay in that well, so you will need something to secure it a bit better. We can then go ahead and attach his shoulder piece, which it just has these little slits in his actual mechanism piece, and you just want to slide them down just like this, stretch it a bit, and just slide it down just like that. We can now take his head, and I'll give you a good look at it once again, just like that. And then we can now go ahead and take the horns. It doesn't matter which horn goes where, and it doesn't actually have a snap lock. Then you just want to do this and repeat the same step on the other side. So once your head looks just like this with all the horns attached, and I did just figure out that you actually want the shoulder piece to have the gap right in the front and not in the back. So then we can go ahead and take his head and now attach it and then just slide it down and snap lock it in. We can now take another interior clothing piece, and this one is super long, and this time it is black. And I do want to say that the place where the Velcros are going to connect are going to be on the back of his head and not in the front. So we can go ahead and do that right now. You just want to simply slide it over just like you see me doing, and in the back there will just be some Velcros, and you can tidy all that up, and then it should look something like this. We can now take his giant long cloak, and it took me a bit to find this, but you will eventually find the top, and it does have these 3 Velcros right at the top for the hood part. And then basically what you want to do with that is just attach them to the back of Fire Demon's head and just make sure the Velcros all align, and then you just want to drape the rest of the costume over Fire Demon. You can then take his right arm, and this costume is super confusing. So basically there's going to be a little slit in his sleeve right here, just like this, and then you will want to slide the arm through that, and then obviously at the top you'll have that prong connection where you just basically want to slide it in, and then as you can see, once you do that, it will start to actually gain some formation just like this, and then the costume will start to actually wrap around the Fire Demon. Now the instructions don't state to do this next, however I do find it to be easier. So next up I'm going to attach his right hand to his right arm, so then I can just get his whole costume situated, because this thing is one big giant mess. So you just want to snap lock his arm down just like that, and now it does have a Velcro at the top, so you just want to feel for it and then just Velcro all that. And now as you can see, his costume is starting to look much better, and then it will start to look like how he should look. We can now take Fire Demon's other arm and then just simply do the same exact step you just want to take his actual sleeve, slide this through there, and then you just want to simply attach the prong connection to the top, and just like the right, it'll start to get some formation. We can now go ahead and attach his left hand, and if I'm being completely honest, this has to be one of the most difficult setups I've ever done because the clothing is just a mess. This is super difficult to do. Once you do get the clothing situated, it is pretty self-explanatory. As for his hand, we can now attach it just like the other one, simply just snap lock it in. And now I'm trying to figure out where snap lock is right there, and then we can just take the Velcro and then just once again Velcro it onto his hand, and then just adjust all the clothing, and then we're getting close to finishing. So there's one thing I forgot about the arms. With there being some sleeves that Fire Demon does come with, and does have a Velcro right here, so you do want to attach these, so I will just have to take his two hands off and then just sort of slide it down like a sleeve. Pretty self-explanatory, and then we'll move on to one of our final steps. And now we can take Fire Demon's rib cage and then just simply slide it down with the two prong connection. Pretty simple step, and then after you do that, just like this, looks pretty good. He does appear to be a bit fat, so at first mine did look like that, and then you just want to push it in, and then after that you can just connect the adapter, plug in all his wires, and then you're good to go. So without any further ado, let's take a look at his demos.
From the dark pit of despair, it burns inside me. I smell your innocence. Come close and warm yourself with the flames of my corrupted soul.
There you just saw the demos for the Spirit Halloween 2025 Fire Demon Animatronic, and overall I'm super impressed with this guy. And as I mentioned earlier in the video, he is said to be outdoor rated, and well, I'm here to test that out. Well, kind of. So as you can see, the wires, they're sort of outdoor rated, but also not at the same time. It's kind of in a gray area. And then in the control box area where you actually choose the mode on, off, or step pad, that does have a rubber sort of outdoor rated cover. So that's definitely nice, but I'm not seeing anything screaming outdoor rated on this prop. So I don't really recommend leaving him in the rain. However, it does say you can. So again, kind of in a gray area. It's like he sort of is outdoor rated, but also isn't at the same time. Me personally, I don't recommend leaving him outdoors unless you do cover his control box with a plastic bag or something like that. But on the topic of my pros, I think that overall the lighting effect on Fire Demon is so awesome. That light that he has with that flame effect is so great, and all the lighting in his face, the flame effect in his forehead almost, and then that red LED in his mouth. Overall, I'm super impressed with the lighting. Fire Demon is very reminiscent of the 2023 Blackheart animatronic, also being sold at Spirit Halloween, as they both have that reveal and animation. However, this time it's only Fire Demon, where the Blackheart had the girl that he revealed, and this time Fire Demon is a jump scare and not that slow reveal. And I think that this works way better on Fire Demon. However, I still think Blackheart is an absolutely phenomenal animatronic, and I do also own him. But I really like the fast jump scare, where not only his arms sort of shoot out and reveal his face actually pops up. And I think overall, this is really awesome. However, I do have another con, as in the stock photos, his teeth are supposed to be sharp. However, as you can see right here, they're pretty dull. They almost look like my teeth. So that's another con. I know some people aren't the biggest fans of Fire Demon's cloak just being all black, but you do have to think that he does have that flame effect in his ribcage, and then overall just all the lighting going on in his head. So I think that the black cloak does work well, and if you do use him outside, it blends in with the night sky. So overall, I think that the black cloak is definitely nice for Fire Demon. The final thing I want to include in this review section of the video is going to be that when he's actually reset it, it almost has a burn and fire sound effect, which I'm not completely sure if that's just his motor or if that's actually his audio. Whatever it is, it sounds really awesome, as almost if he's actually burning as he resets, and it sounds really nice. But that's going to do it for the review section on the Spirit Halloween 2025 Fire Demon Animatronic. Well, that's going to be it for my unboxing and setup of the Spirit Halloween 2025 Fire Demon Animatronic. And let me know down in the comments below if you like Fire Demon. But anyway, make sure you remember that I'm a Spirit Keeper and I give you a reason for every season. Bye.